This page is the front cover, and it's screaming about beach spikers, showing those lovely ladies from the game right there on the sand. It's touting it as a world exclusive. There's also a review for Phantasy Star Online Viva 2, promising everyone wants to be your friend in space. Virtua Fighter 4 also gets a mention as a first play, saying Sega comes out fighting, which is always good to hear. Down at the bottom it shouts game overload and teases more Dreamcast greatness, with little screenshots of titles like Atari Anniversary Pack, Capcom vs SNK Pro, Neo Golden Logris and Hoyle Casino. Looks like a packed issue. The next page opens up with the contents and an editorial piece. The big game, they're calling it, with a large image promoting beach spikers again. Those girls are everywhere this issue. The editorial itself is a bit of a ramble about the magazine's content, mentioning reviews and previews, and a general musing on the state of Dreamcast gaming and the UK Dreamcast scene. Moving on to the newscast section, it's got snippets about upcoming and recent games. Gun Valkyrie is highlighted as Sega's new concept action shooter. They are certainly pushing that one hard. Virtua Fighter 4 and SNK vs Capcom 2 are also mentioned, as Sega is coming out fighting. It's all about fighting games at the moment, isn't it? Vampire Knight gets a nod too. There are adverts running down the side, mostly for UK games and their special reserve deals. They're pushing Dreamcast games and peripherals, with price lists for various titles and accessories. It's all pretty standard stuff for buying games online at the time. They've got Dreamcast consoles, games like Crazy Taxi 2, Dave Mirra BMX, Sonic Adventure 2, and even some older titles in a top 20 best-selling list. They're also showing Game Boy Advance stuff, but we'll skim over that for now. It's mostly just sales and prices for anyone looking to buy games back then. This page screams new releases at £19.99, doesn't it? Big advert for Soldier of Fortune, world's deadliest Soldier of Fortune it reckons, with some gritty screenshots. Then they've got the next Tetris, saying it's Tetris madness for the Dreamcast generation, not just a simple port. Stupid Invaders is there too, something about alien physiology and a Dr. Saccharine. And rounding it off is Dragon Riders of Pern, based on Anne McCaffrey's books. On the right, it's the contents page continuing. Phantasy Star Online Ver 2 is the big review this month. Have we seen you somewhere before? They ask. Cheeky. They've got a global Dreamcast gaming alert, mentioning all the games they've been playing on their Dreamcasts. Looks like you can win Mad Catz peripherals too. Other reviews include Atari Anniversary Pack, Capcom vs SNK Pro, Neo Golden Logris, and Hoyle Casino. The Interact section has the mailbox, reader reviews, DC Online, Dreamcast Solutions, and Part 2 of the Sonic Adventure 2 guide. In forecast, they are looking at Bomberline Online, Bang! Gunship Elite, and Beach Spikers. This issue section highlights Gun Valkyrie, Virtua Fighter 4, and SNK vs Capcom 2, carrying on the fighting game theme from the newscast it seems. This page is all about Gun Valkyrie, dubbed the big story here. It's a Dreamcast exclusive from Smilebit. Reckon they've been quiet for a while, but now they're coming out with this new action shooter. They're calling it a concept action shooter, set in an alternate 19th century, where invention and discovery are all the rage. Apparently, you're up against hordes of creatures, and it's a quick emergency call for the Gun Valkyrie unit to save the world from annihilation. The article mentions Dr. Hebel as being involved, something about him disappearing, and his place being taken by evil. It goes on about it being designed to protect us with new technologies and police, but something goes wrong. They say Gun Valkyrie is yet another reason to start saving for an Xbox, which is a bit of a surprise considering it's a Dreamcast exclusive title at this point. Plenty of screenshots dotted around the page showing off the game. Looks like it has a unique visual style. They are calling it Japanimation style in a little box on the right, and mentioning Jet Set Radio. They're saying the graphics make you take a second look. One screenshot caption says, "Hey lady, don't point that thing at me." Another mentions Red Sky at Night, Shepherd's Delight, or something like that. This article previews several Dreamcast-related topics. Virtua Fighter 4's playtest is highlighted, praising its smooth, fast action, and comparing it favorably to Virtua Fighter 3 TB. Speculation arises about a new female character, possibly Vanessa Lewis. News includes the cancellation of Agatha's European Dreamcast release, disappointing fans. DCTV discusses the Dreamcast release of Half-Life. Cold Cuts reports on trips to Sega amusements for arcade game previews. Virtua Fighter 4, Virtua Tennis, and a gameplay test in Ayia Napa. Finally, an ad from Paragon Publishing promotes various games across multiple platforms, including Game Boy and PC, showcasing titles like Hannibal the Cannibal and Bomberman Tournament, as well as ATV Off-Road Fury, Wafer Challenge, and Dreamcast DVD releases. This page is all about Capcom vs SNK2 and a Boom Prize Explosion competition. Capcom vs SNK2 is previewed, highlighting the new Groove system which offers 6 different playstyles derived from Capcom and SNK games, promising a deeper fighting experience. It mentions the ratio system for character selection, and that there are loads of fighters to choose from. They are excited to bring a full review soon. On the right side of the page is a large Boom Prize Explosion advert, showcasing a massive prize giveaway. Prizes up for grabs include mobile phones, news explosion videos, mini-disc players, laptops, digital hi-fi systems, widescreen TVS, Buffy season box sets, digital cameras, Winimax, standard TVS, Game Boys, Pocket TVS, WWE wrestling videos, PlayStations, makeup sets, watches, Robbie Williams concert tickets, scooters, and even a Dreamcast itself. It lists phone numbers to call to ring and win these prizes. Infogrames acquired rights to several Sega titles, including Monkey Ball, Jet Set Radio Future, and Crazy Taxi Next, for other platforms. Vampire Knight, a PS2 port of an arcade game, is compared to House of the Dead 2 but with vampires. Speedball 2, Brutal Deluxe, is touted as a multiplayer sports game. Virtual On, Oratorio Tangram, focuses on its virtual force and arcade roots, with improved graphics and collectible figures. A review of Matt Hoffman's Pro BMX notes the game's US Dreamcast release while the European version is delayed. Finally, a section features light-hearted banter and reader interaction related to Dreamcast Magazine. This document provides a glimpse into the Dreamcast gaming scene. It features UK chart updates revealing upcoming Dreamcast releases, including titles like Jet Set Radio 2, alongside established franchises. The Top Sellers chart showcases popular games like Sonic Adventure 2. A Dream Fights section focuses on fighting games, speculating about potential Dreamcast versions of fighting franchises, while an editor named John Austin is mentioned. GameStation offers Dreamcast games with promotional pricing, highlighting titles such as Soldier of Fortune at £15.99. Numerous budget-priced games are also advertised. An advertisement for Inspector Cheats, a cheat code service, lists thousands of game cheats. Finally, a competition offers a copy of London Nights, asking players to identify a city not featured in the game. This page highlights Dreamcast news from various regions. Japan's top Dreamcast games are Sonic Adventure 2 and Phantasy Star Online 2, while the US favors Bleamcast, Dreamcast Grand Prix, Soldier of Fortune, and Virtua Tennis. The US news section previews NCAA College Football 2K2, focusing on its improved graphics and Dynasty mode. A Crazy Taxi movie is still in development, drawing inspiration from the game. Dreamcasting discusses movie tie-ins. Japan News previews Cosmic Smash, a futuristic squash-like game coming to Dreamcast. A competition offers Outrigger copies and peripherals. Traveler's Checks rounds up brief news, a Sega Japan Dreamcast card, potential online issues for World Series Baseball 2K2, potential US price drops for Christmas, and Sega.net's ISP partnership. This page dives into a preview of Res, under the header, My Kind of Music. It's flagged as first Res screenshots, and they're raving about it being an incredibly long time coming but well worth the wait, having tracked down the first screenshots for this upcoming musical shooter from United Game Artists. They mention it was formerly known as K Project, and is being touted as something rather special, a game in the vein of Space Harrier, but with a musical twist, describing it as a musical shooter. Have you ever heard of anything so bizarre? There's also a Dreamcast Dairy box in the corner, asking if you've seen this game, presumably Tropico judging by the picture, and if so to report any sightings to Dreamcast Magazine Online or via phone. Finally, it highlights TotalGames.net, boasting over 1,000 Dreamcast tips, cheats, and solutions available online. Bomberman Online is a preview of the Dreamcast version, titled World Domination. It highlights Bomberman's history across various platforms, building anticipation for the Dreamcast and Game Boy Advance releases, including a potential Bomberman tournament. The preview focuses on online multiplayer for the Dreamcast, suggesting it could be a major game. It details new gameplay modes like Hyper Bombers and Battle Royale. The review calls it, unarguably the greatest version of Bomberman ever to grace the Earth, and describes the gameplay as classic Bomberman with updated graphics. Screenshots showcase familiar grids, characters, and explosions. The game, developed by Hudson Soft, is expected to release in September, and is described as a party game, addictive, and a classic. This page features a preview of Bang! Gunship Elite, a space shooter described as arcade-style blasting action. The article suggests it's a return to form for the genre, moving away from overly complex simulations. It mentions the game's simple, pick-up-and-play nature, and fast-paced gameplay, comparing it favorably to other titles in the genre, stating it's less like Starlancer. The article highlights that it's all about blasting aliens and enjoying the action, and includes screenshots showing in-game action and the cockpit view. Moving over to the right, there's an advert for a new magazine called Gear. It's shouting about being the magazine that takes no shot and reviews all sorts of gadgets, from games to sportswear and in-things, promising honest, no-nonsense reviews. They reckon it's better than sex, apparently, or at least that's what Man claims. Down below, on the left is a voucher for £5 off at game stores for purchases over £29.99. And on the right, another game advert, this one promoting Dreamcast titles, with the headline Game On. Save money on your favorite Dreamcast titles. It suggests Dreamcast is still great value, and highlights the range of titles available. It encourages readers to use the voucher to get a good deal on games. The next page showcases a preview for Beach Spikers, Virtua Beach Volleyball. It's all about stunning bikini-clad girls on golden sands, promising gameplay that's so good it could be real, or so they reckon. Sega and their AM2 development team are behind it, aiming for the perfect arcade game for the Dreamcast, although it looks like it was destined for the arcades originally. Magazine heads down the beach to find out. As the tagline goes, the preview text bigs it up as the sauciest game to hit arcades for years, getting right to the point about its appeal. They're making a point about how it's not like Dead or Alive despite the girls, it's about the gameplay, apparently, and keeping players coming back for more. The Courting Trouble section on the right-hand side explains the game structure, talking about different rounds and stages, like Mikasa-sponsored courts, sunset-soaked stages, and even a Coca-Cola court. It builds up to a grand final, promising tough gameplay. It seems like they are going for the classic arcade feel with this one. There are screenshots showing the gameplay, and yes, there are plenty of girls in bikinis. They even quote something quite cheeky. Once you've started, you're not going to want to give up until you've reached the final and are crowned beach volleyball king. Sounds like typical arcade hype, but I remember being quite intrigued by this one at the time. Beach Spikers, Virtua Beach Volleyball is previewed, emphasizing its focus on female players, dubbed Beach Bums of the World Unite. The game boasts 8 teams representing various countries, a contrast to Virtua Tennis's male-only roster. The preview highlights the graphics, technical specs, and smooth action, with cheeky comparisons. Testy players offer their opinions, mainly praising the controls and visuals. While some found the controls initially challenging, they ultimately enjoyed the game, with one even preferring it to Virtua Tennis. The game seems to aim for an arcade hit, with the Dreamcast version likely a secondary consideration. This page is a feature article titled, Where to Governor. It looks like it's commenting on Sega's future direction after they decided to stop making consoles and focus on game development. There's a road sign in the image, a bit like a motorway sign, directing traffic for Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony and Nintendo again, with their respective consoles pictured above each lane: Game Boy Advance, Xbox, PlayStation 2 and GameCube. The sign says, "Get in your correct lane now." Below it there's a yellow taxi, which is probably the governor in the title, suggesting Sega needs to decide which lane to take now they are no longer competing directly in the console hardware race. The article text sets the scene by mentioning it's been a long, hard road for Sega, but with the recent decision to concentrate on games rather than hardware, it asks, where does Sega plan on going next? It's a commentary piece on Sega's strategic choices post-Dreamcast. Those Were the Days offers a retrospective on Sega's history, tracing its origins from 1954, with David Rosen's Rosen Enterprises to the Sega we know today. Highlights include the success of Periscope, 1966, and Hang On, 1985, the arrival of Sonic the Hedgehog, 1991, the 3D revolution of Virtua Fighter, 1993, and the launches of the Saturn, 1995, and Dreamcast, 1998. The piece includes industry perspectives. Metro Mustafa recalls publisher dominance and Sega's marketing challenges. Clive Gorman reminisces about the industry's excessive spending during the Dreamcast era. Simon Callaghan reflects on the Dreamcast's promise and the evolution of power in the industry, noting his fondness for Sega games. The page is illustrated with iconic game screenshots, evoking a sense of nostalgia for classic Sega titles. This article delves into the Dreamcast era, examining Sega's battle against PlayStation and its comeback attempt with the Dreamcast. Industry insights from Assam Ahmad and Louise Gabriel highlight the console's gamer-friendly nature, but potential business challenges, and the initial optimism surrounding it. The article then previews two anticipated games. Gun Valkyrie, a Dreamcast exclusive, is praised for its visual power and detailed action showcasing the console's capabilities. Jet Set Radio Future, initially planned for Dreamcast but later released on Xbox, is described as evolving the original's concept with larger environments and expanded gameplay, emphasizing its stylish visuals and iconic music. Both games demonstrated the Dreamcast's and, eventually, the Xbox's strengths. This page showcases a selection of upcoming games. Particularly interesting are the previews of titles initially associated with the Dreamcast now heading to the Xbox. First up is House of the Dead 3, looks like more zombie blasting action, continuing the series on the Xbox, moving from the arcades, a solid light gun shooter for sure, Junox. Next we have Sega GT 2002. Now this is interesting, positioning itself as the Dreamcast's answer to PlayStation's Gran Turismo. It appears to be bringing a proper car showroom experience, with plenty of tracks and car customization, and now it's set to appear on the Xbox. Then there's Crazy Taxi next. Blimey, it seems like what might have been a Dreamcast sequel, evolving from the well-received Crazy Taxi and Crazy Taxi 2, is now heading to the Xbox exclusively. They're hinting at something special for this Xbox version, which is certainly intriguing. Finally, Panzer Dragoon is featured. After the acclaimed Panzer Dragoon saga on the Saturn, a new Panzer Dragoon title is appearing, though it seems to be destined for the Xbox. They're highlighting the action-oriented shoot-'em-up style, and it's mentioned as being one of the most anticipated titles on the Xbox. This page showcases a selection of titles heading to the GameCube. First up is Phantasy Star Online, and they're making the point that while the Dreamcast version was exciting, this GameCube version is even earlier, straight from E3. They mention it will have 4-player split screen, which is interesting for a game of this type, retaining all the online features and content from the Dreamcast iteration. Next, it's Super Monkey Ball, which they're calling a proper tribute to the GameCube hardware, noting its visual polish despite a short development cycle. It's all about rolling monkeys in balls, tilting the levels to guide them to the goal, simple but addictive gameplay, and the screenshots show off the bright and colorful levels. Then we have Virtua Striker 3, which is touted as visually excellent and perfectly at home on the GameCube. Being the latest version of the arcade hit, it's bringing along several gameplay modes and a completely revamped play system for the home console. The screenshots are classic football action in the stadium. Lastly, Planet Harriers is featured, described as the sequel to Space Harrier, already doing the rounds in arcades. It's now officially confirmed for the GameCube, emphasizing the fast-paced, action-based nature of the game, and they reckon it's a perfect fit for a home console, perhaps even better than its arcade counterpart. The screenshots give a glimpse of the futuristic shooter action we can expect. Upcoming PlayStation 2 titles are showcased, starting with Virtua Fighter 4, boasting stunning visuals and classic strategic gameplay with added charge tactics. Next is Rez, a unique music-based shooter with innovative, simple yet compelling gameplay featuring music collaborations. Space Channel 5 series, a surprise arrival, maintains its addictive gameplay and iconic style with Ulala. Finally, Ferrari 355 Challenge promises a more challenging and realistic experience than its Dreamcast predecessor, aiming for arcade-like simulation and pushing the PlayStation 2 hardware's limits, appealing to players seeking a skill-based challenge. Dreamcast Magazine previews several upcoming PlayStation 2 games. Headhunter, a tactical espionage thriller from Amuse and Sega, is planned for 2001 and features a mature storyline and motorbike gameplay, promising a large game world. Echo the Dolphin from Appaloosa and Sony, a visual masterpiece and spiritual successor to the Dreamcast titles, is due in 2002, focusing on underwater exploration and classic Echo mechanics. 18-Wheeler Trucker, an arcade conversion from Acclaim and Sega, releases in August 2001, offering arcade-style gameplay, large trucks, and split-screen multiplayer. Finally, Zombie Revenge from WoW Entertainment and Acclaim, also August 2001, builds on its arcade version, promising more enemies, depth, and a zombie blastathon experience with melee weapons and a flamethrower. The next page showcases a selection of cracking puzzle games making their way onto the Game Boy Advance. First up is Choo Choo Rocket. They King puzzle games, from Sonic Team and Infogrames, Slated for release very soon, it's practically identical to the Dreamcast version, even down to the multiplayer, meaning you can inflict puzzle madness on your mates on the go. Next, there's Puyo Puyo, also from Infogrames and due in spring 2002. This one's always a winner, a classic color-matching puzzler, and this version promises to be another essential portable title. Then we have Advanced Columns by Sega, out in September 2001. It looks like a solid take on the falling blocks formula, perfect for quick puzzle fixes on your handheld. Finally, Sonic Advance from Sonic Team and Infogrames, arriving in November 2001. This is proper Sonic on the Game Boy Advance, looking remarkably like the Mega Drive classics. It even lets you control Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, so it's shaping up to be a proper Sonic experience in your pocket. This page is a colorful advert for a magazine called TCW Trading Card World, banging on about how crazy they are about cards. But more importantly, there's a little section dedicated to Sega sports games. They reckon NBA 2K2 and NFL 2K2 are absolutely top-notch sports titles for the Dreamcast. They are especially impressed by the visuals, saying they look fantastic and are a real step up compared to other sports games of the time. The review highlights that these games are a proper showcase for the Dreamcast's graphical power. This page is all about the latest Dreamcast game reviews. Dominating the page is an exclusive review of Phantasy Star Online v.2. They're saying it's more of the same as the original, but now with a number at the end apparently. Some might find that a bit cunning. There's a Dream Team section with opinions from different folks like Simon Phillips and Chandra Nair, each with a Game of the Month award, a bit of fun, including some non-Dreamcast stuff. Then, there's the proper Dreamcast opinion review for Phantasy Star Online v.2. They break down the rating into visuals, sounds, gameplay and value, giving it an overall score of 66%. They sum it up as, not as bad as you might think, but still not enough to warrant more than a few days play. Down the side, and the rest, section quickly covers a few other games. Atari Anniversary Pack with 52%, Capcom vs SNK Pro gets 56%, Neo Golden Logris with 58%, and Hoyle Casino at 60%, each with a little screenshot and a brief line or two. Finally, there's a box explaining their scoring system, from awesome 90% plus games down to rubbish 0.24% titles, sets the scene for their reviewing approach. The next page continues the review of Phantasy Star Online v.2. It sounds like the reviewer was initially skeptical about this update to the original Phantasy Star Online, but they were pleasantly surprised. They highlight the online experience, mentioning playing with others and the strong community feel, especially when dealing with server issues and hackers. They talk about teaming up and the social aspect being a big part of the game's appeal, even comparing it to the Final Fantasy games in terms of community. There are screenshots showing in-game action, combat scenes, and the user interface with health and level information. One caption mentions, in the battle mode you can team up with somebody, or maybe go for a one-on-one deathmatch with another team, emphasizing the multiplayer options. Another section titled, Oh, the Humanity, talks about the positive experiences they had playing with other people online, suggesting it was a key part of the enjoyment despite some technical issues. Phantasy Star Online v.2 is getting rave reviews. The review highlights classic Dreamcast gameplay, including traps and the new ultimate difficulty. Changes in v.2, such as starting fresh characters, are praised. The game's deep character creation and social aspects, including lobby interactions and online play with friends, are also emphasized. Reviewers are particularly impressed with the online multiplayer experience, despite occasional server issues. The review also touches upon the feeling of fantasy fatigue, suggesting that the online features help combat burnout. A quote from Gary Adams emphasizes the importance of memories and social connections. Overall, the game receives an 82% score, with high marks for visuals, sound, gameplay, and value, solidifying its status as a positive online experience. The Atari Anniversary Pack for Dreamcast offers a mixed bag of arcade classics. Battlezone is a standout, lauded for its vector graphics and tactical gameplay, earning a 9/10. Crystal Castles, however, disappoints with its lost simplicity, scoring a low 3/10. Centipede and Millipede provide mindless blasting, receiving a 5/10. Asteroids and Asteroids Deluxe, offering simplistic fun, get a 6/10. Finally, Gravitar, a challenging space shooter, also scores a 6/10. The review also includes Atari trivia, such as its original name, and the infamous game cartridge Burial. This page continues the look at the Atari Anniversary Pack for the Dreamcast, and kicks off with a review of Pong, giving it a 6 out of 10 and noting its historical significance as the origin of home video games. Next up is Missile Command, scoring an 8 out of 10, praised for its addictive gameplay and challenging city protection. Warlords gets a 7 out of 10, highlighting its original take on Breakout and fun multiplayer. Turning over to the right page we have Super Breakout, which also gets a 6 out of 10. The review mentions its simple but addictive gameplay of brick breaking. Tempest is reviewed next and scores a cracking 9 out of 10, lauded as a fast-paced vector graphics shooter that still holds up brilliantly. There's an article called Atari So Good, discussing if these old games are still relevant. It acknowledges the charm and nostalgia of these titles from the 70s and 80s, reflecting on Paperboy, Rampart and others, concluding that while they are a bit simple, they're still fun to be had. Finally, there's a Dreamcast opinion section which gives the whole Atari Anniversary Pack a 65% overall score, summing up the scores from the individual game reviews on the previous page and this page. They also suggest the Sega Smash Pack as an alternative for retro game fans. Capcom vs SNK Pro is a solid, albeit incremental, update to the original fighting game. The review praises the improved graphics and added characters, like Dan Hibiki and Joe Higashi, as appealing to fans. However, it emphasizes that the core gameplay remains largely unchanged, with only subtle tweaks likely unnoticeable to casual players. The review suggests that the game offers good value, but is essentially a revision rather than a significant sequel. The Pro opinion sees it as a classic beat-em-up, while Blow deems it only for hardcore fans. Chandra Nair echoes this sentiment, advising existing owners to skip, unless they are dedicated fans. The review recommends Guilty Gear X as a graphically superior alternative. The game receives high Dreamcast ratings, with an overall score of 91%, but ultimately the review concludes it's a minor upgrade if you already own the first game. Neo Golden Logres, an import pinball game, receives a positive review. Set in the King Arthur world, it offers a revolutionary take on the genre, featuring shiny metal balls, a color meter, and changing targets. While the storyline is over the top, the game's challenge and enjoyable gameplay earn praise. The review acknowledges the game's silly title and theme, but celebrates its unique approach. Chandra Nair's second opinion highlights the refreshing deviation from typical pinball games. The review suggests it might be hard to find. As an alternative, Pro Pinball Trilogy is recommended. Being available in the UK, Neo Golden Logres receives an 83% overall rating, with high marks in visuals, sounds, gameplay and value, and the review concludes with an enthusiastic recommendation. This page reviews Hoyle Casino for the Dreamcast. It's pitching itself as bringing the Las Vegas experience home, thankfully without the questionable Shrimp and Tom Jones. The review talks about it being a casino simulator, and while acknowledging it's not perfect, a bad bunch is the phrase they use, it's still recommended as the best option for casino gaming on the Dreamcast. The review mentions it's a complete tutorial for casino games, and helpful for those learning. It notes the range of stakes, from $1 to unlimited amounts, and the variety of games, like craps, roulette, poker, and blackjack. Video Blackjack gets a specific mention as a favorite of the reviewer. The No More Bets Please section talks about it being a worthwhile substitute for the real deal, and a decent enough way to gamble without real money. There's a judgment box rating the game, with sections for raise and fold. Raise points include tutorials and ease of play. Fold points are mainly that it's not the real thing. The second opinion section from Simon Phillips seems a bit more critical, suggesting it's perhaps only for die-hard gamblers who can't get to a real casino. He admits to enjoying it, but says he'd rather lose real cash in a real casino. The Alternatively section recommends Caesar's Palace 2000 as another option. The review score is 61% overall. The rating breakdown shows visuals at 70%, sounds 32%, gameplay 68%, and value 61%. The next page is a veritable treasure trove for import gaming fans, especially if you're a Dreamcast devotee. It's an advertisement from a company called Project K, and they're offering all sorts of goodies. There's a section dedicated to Pocket Station gear, Beatmania Pocket stuff, and even Game Boy Advance imports. They're also flogging PS2 to VGA boxes, which were handy bits of kit back in the day, for hooking up your PlayStation to a monitor. But the real draw is the Japanese merchandise and games. They've got Final Fantasy bits and bobs galore, like figures and soundtracks. And right in the middle there's a big shout out to Sonic Adventure 2, calling it Sonic's latest adventure, lovingly put together just for you, which is a nice touch. It's a proper import shop. catering to those of us who wanted to get our hands on the games and gear that you couldn't always find down your local high street. The mailbox section features reader feedback on the Dreamcast. Topics include peripheral pricing and debate over the console's cost. Several letters reflect on the Dreamcast's future, with mixed emotions. Some readers feel sorry for Sega, but enjoy the games. One letter criticizes reviewers, while another praises Dreamcast. Jorycast. Online gaming is discussed, with a focus on keyboard usage and the high costs in Australia. One reader shares a positive experience, highlighting the Dreamcast's value and game selection. Shortcuts contains quick snippets on various topics, including a request for help after a leg injury, magazine content patterns, and a sound issue. Screenshots of a racing game, possibly Metropolis Street Racer, and a mech are included. Worry. This reader reviews section features 4 Dreamcast titles. Hidden and Dangerous, Take-Two/Illusion Softworks, receives an 87%, praised for its strategic depth despite challenging controls and Dreamcast limitations. Phantasy Star Online, Sega, earns a 94%, lauded for its next-gen graphics and easy multiplayer, though with some repetitive level design. Ultimate Fighting Championship, Acclaim, gets a 90%, with its brutal fighting gameplay described as a must-have for fighting fans. Finally, Sonic Adventure, Sega, scores an 89%, with reviewers loving the visuals and action stages, although the RPG sections were noted as a drawback. The page also includes advertisements for various services, such as prank calls, mobile accessories, ringtones, and cheats, along with details on reader contributions. This Dreamcast Online guide highlights websites accessible on the console. The Candyman Can features Cyber Candy. Film suggests Allmovie. Get 'em Off points to Club Moulin Rouge. Cybercrime mentions Operation Swordfish. A Great Loss recommends Rosebudus/Hooker, and Inditastic points to Muse Official. Fuzzy Wuzzy references superfurry.com. Japanese aids, Japanese site navigation, with food, suggesting food.Asian connections. English Speaking, featuring English.com, and Translate, Baby recommending Savagen.com. Comedy includes Fred.net/turtle/asskicker and Dribbleglass.com, with Going Red suggesting Buy a Laugh Book. Weird features sites about hearses and astrology. A competition offers Angel box sets, requiring the correct answer about the Angel series. Finally, a premium rate phone line offers Dreamcast game help. This page is packed with cheat codes for some cracking Dreamcast titles. Starting with Crazy Taxi 2, it gives you the lowdown on unlocking no destination markers, expert mode, push bikes, prams, and even changing the arrow color. Next up is Spider-Man, highlighting cheats for unlocking everything, from level select to infinite webbing, all game covers, comics, and even all characters in the gallery. There's a massive list of costume unlocks too, including symbiotes, Spider-Man 2099, Captain Universe, and even a Peter Parker costume. It also covers wacky races, cheats for unlocking all tracks and bosses, vehicles, and even a hard-as-nails mode. Finally, for Unreal Tournament, there are cheat instructions for skip level, becoming invincible, and getting maximum ammo, all activated using the D-pad and buttons in-game. There's also a small section showcasing some new mobile phones, and a competition to win a mobile phone holder. This Dreamcast gaming Q&A covers several topics. In Crazy Taxi 2, unlocking all vehicles requires finding hidden emblems, not just completing missions. For Sonic Adventure, beating the Egg Viper boss necessitates practicing the timing of your attacks. To unlock Akuma in Cap.com versus SNK, players must purchase both Marigan and Nakoruru. Cheat codes aren't recommended for Metropolis Street Racer, but an Exploder disc is suggested. A Beat Yourself challenge for Crazy Taxi 2's special minigames offers a chance to win Joytech prizes. Finally, there are advertisements for DVD Review Magazine and Cheats Unlimited. This page is a walkthrough for Sonic Adventure 2, Part 2, in Dreamcast Magazine. It covers level guides for Iron Gate, Dry Lagoon and Sand Ocean, along with a boss fight guide for B3X Hotshot. Iron Gate Level 01 focuses on Dr. Eggman navigating a military base, shooting robots and finding KO containers. Level 02, Dry Lagoon, is about Rouge finding 3 pieces of the Master Emerald, involving Emerald Piece locations and KO containers, with areas like Statue's Pool and Three Head Wall. Sand Ocean Level 03 is again with Dr. Eggman on a mission to return to a hidden base, involving platforms, dynamite, and more robot shooting. Finally, the boss fight section covers B3X Hotshot, a Bigfoot boss, detailing how to hit the cockpit when it's grounded, and avoid the machine gun fire and large crosshair fire. The page is packed with screenshots from the game to illustrate the walkthrough. The next page continues the Sonic Adventure 2 walkthrough, picking up with level 04, Radical Highway, featuring Shadow. The guide details hitting springs to navigate the level, taking the right fork, and using homing attacks on droids, and even grabbing a KO container. Moving on to level 05, Egg Quarters. With Rouge, it's all about finding 3 keys using hints from the radar, dealing with lasers and green lights, and finding KO containers in areas like the Egg Scorpion Chamber and Egg Snake Chamber. Level 06, Lost Colony, features Dr. Eggman, and it's about shooting dynamite to progress, dropping down through doors, dealing with robots, and finding another KO container. Finally, level 07, Weapons Bed, also with Dr. Eggman, involves shooting groups of robots, walking along a ship, and using dynamite to clear large cannons, and find a KO container in the large cannon. Plenty of screenshots are included to help guide players through each level. The next page of this walkthrough dives right back into Sonic Adventure 2. We're on to level 8, Security Hall, playing as Rouge, where the aim is to snag those Chaos Emeralds within 5 minutes using the radar hints. Level 9 is White Jungle with Shadow, tasking you to cut through the jungle in 10 minutes. Level 10, Route 280, is Rouge again. This time it's Chase the Tornado. Sounds like a racing section from the look of it. And finally, level 11, Sky Rail, is back to Shadow for Chase the Tornado again, this time on rails by the looks of the screenshots. There's also a section on boss fights. First up is a Sonic boss fight, classic Shadow vs Sonic action, which mirrors the first boss fight in the hero story, so if you've played that, you'll know the drill using homing attacks and avoiding his moves. Next is the R1/a Flying Dog boss fight. This one is against that big Eggfoot robot, tricky to hit as the arena's a bit limited. Finally, there's a Tails boss fight against Eggman's Egg Emperor, a tough one where missiles and fire will test your health, so best to use rigs to raise it up higher. All good solid boss encounters for this stage in the game. The walkthrough continues with levels for Rouge, Dr. Eggman, and Shadow. Mad Space, Rouge, involves using iron boots in a blue tower to launch a rocket. Cosmic Wall, Eggman, is a platforming level with crate jumping, hovering, and shooting. Final Chase, Shadow, is a high-speed action stage with homing attacks and rail grinding. Boss battles include the Egg Golem, where you target exposed chest generators with rockets. The Knuckles fight, behind King Boom Boo, requires dodging shadows and striking when the skylight closes. Finally, the Tails fight necessitates avoiding his rockets and laser cannon while keeping mobile. This page continues the walkthrough for Sonic Adventure 2, focusing on the last chapter and a boss fight. The last chapter section details gameplay for both Tails and Sonic. For Tails, it's about navigating a level, shooting robots, activating switches, and dealing with water monsters, emphasizing using lasers and boosters. For Sonic in the same chapter, it's about navigating a linear path using light speed dash and tornado attack, advising to look out for parts of the walkway that drop down. The boss fight section, simply labeled Sonic, looks like it's against Dr. Eggman, judging by the art of Eggman in the corner, and it mentions using light speed dash to get rings and tornado attack when Eggman is vulnerable, advising to be careful of falling debris. The screenshots show in-game action from these described sections of Sonic Adventure 2. This page continues the Sonic Adventure 2 walkthrough, now onto the boss fights against the Biolizard and the Final Hazard. The Biolizard section explains that this fella is tough, and you will lose rings, advising to run away and jump over water pipes coming out of his mouth and grind on them, then use the homing attack. It mentions the Biolizard stops, and one lump comes out of his back to attack, and to jump and roll to avoid the projectiles. For the Final Hazard boss fight, it says the Biolizard is now attached to the space colony, and you must attack Sonic and Shadow's weaknesses by hitting the red swellings on his body, and once you have used Shadow and Sonic 3 times each, the lizard will be successfully defeated. Below this walkthrough section, there is a small advert for Gametron Exchange, offering pre-owned Game Boy Advance consoles for £19.99 when you trade in Color Game Boy or Color Game Boy games. What's that all about then, eh? Is a Dreamcast game directory offering brief descriptions, ratings, and details on player counts, online capabilities, peripherals, and review sources. It aims to guide Dreamcast owners in their purchasing decisions, with sections for genre highlights and mini-reviews of peripherals. The directory covers a wide array of titles. Notable games mentioned include Aqua GT Amazing, Capcom vs SNK Must Own, Daytona USA 2001 Classic, and Jet Set Radio Great. The directory provides a rapid overview of the Dreamcast library, helping readers gauge game quality and decide what to explore. This directory features reviews for music albums, games, and graphic novels. The CD reviews section rates Mercury Reverends and Stereolab highly, 4/5, the latter recommended for purchase, while criticizing NSYNC, 2/5. Most played focuses on Dreamcast games, including Rally 2 91%, Sega Worldwide Soccer 2000 90%, and a range of titles like Sonic Adventure and Street Fighter Alpha 3. The comics section reviews graphic novels like Transmetropolitan, Lonely City. Best of Genre highlights top Dreamcast games, Resident Evil, Code Veronica, Action/Adventure, Soul Calibur, Beat 'em Up, MSR, Driving/Racing, Choo Choo Rocket, Party/Puzzle, Star Lancer, Shoot 'em Up, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 Sports, and Hidden and Dangerous, Strategy/Simulation. This page reviews Dreamcast games, split into game reviews and import directory. In game reviews, fighting games like Street Fighter 2i, Third Strike, 88%, and Virtua Fighter 3 TB, 85%, receive high praise. Other notable scores include Sword of the Berserk, Guts Rage, 86%, Toy Commander, 87%, and Unreal Tournament, 87%. Sports games, like Virtua Tennis, 87%, and Suzuki All-Star Extreme Racing, 78%, also fare well. However, UFC 48% and Super Magnetic Neo 52% get low scores. The import directory catalogs import titles, providing details like publisher, player count, and online features. The list includes games such as Aerodancing F, Biohazard 2, Cannon Spike, and Virtua On 2. The directory also contains short reviews, updating scores for Sonic Adventure, 75%, and Soul Fighter, 71%, and highlighting Suzuki All-Star Racing again. This page is showing off a load of quirky bits and bobs, stuff and nonsense they're calling it, more to fill in time between games. First up there's the Scoot Board, looks like a skateboard and Scooter had a baby. Then a microbike, a tiny bike that's supposed to be the hell's point of asking. Next is Irv, a robot toy they reckon is full of jokes and special talents. Below that is Dunkit, an inflatable basketball hoop for indoors, and Oddballs, those space hopper things, in bright colors. There's also a roulette set if you fancy a bit of home gambling. Chill Room is a blow-up clear plastic bubble, looks a bit daft. Then Shelby, a Furby-type toy that's back in fashion apparently. An ice cream maker, for making your own ice cream creations. Jurassic Park 2 iToys are featured with a handheld game and a speaker, clearly cashing in on the film. And finally, the Bass Station, a Bluetooth speaker for your tunes. So, a real mixed bag of tat, to keep you entertained when you're not glued to the Dreamcast, I suppose. This page is heavily focused on Virtua Fighter 4, posing the question of whether it can be a Tekken 4 beater. There are a few action shots from the game showing off the fighters. Looking at what's coming up in the reviewed next issue section, they're highlighting Metal Gear Solid finally making its way to the Dreamcast, although with a bit of a PlayStation slant mentioned. There's also Bang, Gunship Elite, which they describe as a puddle-deep shooter, Special Ops 2 where you can mess about with face paint, Industrial Spy Heavy Metal, Geomatrix which is apparently an adult-themed third-person shooter, and Arabian Nights, likening it to Tomb Raider but with an Arabian twist. Over in Solutions next issue, Crazy Taxi 2 is featured, promising tips on how to rake in the big fares, plus cheats for other games including Phantasy Star Point 2, Outrigger, Capcom vs SNK Pro, and Sega Sports Jam. This page is split into two sections, back issues and subscriptions. The back issues section is like a trip down memory lane, showing all the previous front covers of Dreamcast Magazine from issue 1 right up to issue 24. Many of them are marked as sold out, which is a shame if you missed them back in the day. Looking at the covers, you can see the kind of games they were covering, everything from Toy Commander and Soul Calibur, in the early issues, right through to Headhunter, Outrigger, and even Shenmue 2 towards the later ones. There's a real mix of titles there. The subscription side is pretty straightforward, pushing subscriptions to the magazine. They're highlighting a direct debit option to save 10%, and a special offer of 6 issues for just £17, telling you to save cash. There's a form to fill out for subscribing, covering personal details and payment methods, offering both direct debit and check or credit card options, with different pricing for UK, Europe and World subscriptions. They are pushing the direct debit and cheaper UK option at £7.65 every 3 issues, saving 10%. The next page has a feature called Dream Moment, all about Sonic Adventure 2. It's showcasing the game with a big picture of Sonic and Shadow, you know, the edgy hedgehog. They're talking about how it was a key Dreamcast game, being one of the last great games on the system before Sega moved away from consoles. They mention it was also on other consoles, like PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube, but rightly focus on its Dreamcast roots. It's got that classic, "If we work together we can do anything" line. It's also pushing for readers to send in their own dream moments for the magazine. Issue 26 is highlighted as being on sale on the 8th of September, 2001. Then on the right side, completely different thing, it's a big advert for mobile phone ringtones and graphics. Remember when that was all the rage? It's pushing a website, mobiletone.co.uk, and phone numbers you could call to get polyphonic ringtones and graphics for your phone. They've got loads listed, from pop songs like He Loves You Not and Thong Song, to themes like Simpsons, Star Wars, and even brands like BMW and Ferrari. They're boasting about having thousands to pick from for Sagem and Motorola phones. A proper snapshot of early 2000s mobile phone culture there.